A single dad, a runaway mother, and a baby find healing after a turbulent flight. A heartwarming tale of found family, second chances, and quiet kindness that will stay with you. Before we begin, if you believe in the quiet magic of kindness and healing with love, subscribe, and let's walk this path together. It began with a delay, not the loud kind, not the kind that sparks groans and announcements. This one crept in quietly, like fog rolling in over prairie grass, soft and patient, until even time seemed to slow. At gate B7, the world waited. The lights overhead buzzed faintly, casting everything in a sterile, sleep-starved glow. Outside, a curtain of gray moved across the tarmac. Clouds thick with unshed rain, the kind that made runways shimmer before the storm. Somewhere in the distance, a toddler screamed. Somewhere else, a teenager rolled her eyes. But near the corner bench by the window, time stilled. Elias Cade sat with one knee raised, his arm draped across it, watching his daughter trace the fog on the glass with a sleepy finger. Lena, 6 years old and full of more silence than most kids her age, had drawn a tiny horse in the condensation. It was lopsided, but it galloped. That was enough. She's worried. Lena said softly, eyes still on the glass. Elias turned, slow. Who's worried, baby? Lena pointed. Across the gate, a woman sat alone, her coat wrapped too tightly around her body, as though it could keep the world out. She held a baby, not cradled but clutched, protective, exhausted. The baby wore mismatched socks and a green onesie with a faded moon stitched over the chest. He squirmed once, then stilled, cheek buried in her collarbone. I think her heart is loud, Lena said. Elias didn't smile, not quite, just let his gaze linger. The woman was bone-tired, the kind of tired you carry in your spine. Her eyes darted across the terminal, like she didn't trust her place in it. He recognized it. That look, that quiet apology for simply existing. The announcement came, delay, 2 hours. A collective exhale of discontent rippled through the crowd. Suitcases shifted. Phones buzzed. Elias leaned his head back, eyes toward the ceiling. He hadn't flown since that year. Lena climbed into his lap without asking, tucking herself against him like she always had. He kissed the top of her head. Vanilla shampoo. She still smelled like bedtime stories. Then came the cry, soft at first, then louder. The baby in the green onesie arched backward, fists tiny and furious. The mother tried bouncing, whispering, even patting the rhythm of some long-lost lullaby on his back. But the cry cut through everything. Cut through every conversation, every podcast, every half-bored glance. The people around her sighed, shifted, judged. Elias felt Lena tense. He nudged her. Want to go say hi? To the baby? To both. Lena nodded, her curls bouncing, and slid off his lap with the solemnity of a soldier on duty. She pulled out her teddy, a worn, stitched creature named Clover, and made her way across the terminal. The woman looked up, startled. My dad said I could give him this. It helps when my heart is loud. The woman stared at the bear, then at Lena. His name's Clover, Lena said. He smells like cinnamon, 'cause I dropped him in oatmeal once. Silence stretched like the wind between empty barns. Then, slowly like a thaw, something in the woman's face shifted. She reached out, took the bear with trembling fingers, and whispered, "Thank you." Her voice was husky, dry, like it hadn't been used in days. Lena grinned. "I'm Lena. That's my dad." She pointed. The woman followed her finger. Their eyes met across the gate. Elias gave a nod, nothing more. She nodded back, tight, guarded. Lena climbed into the seat beside her, utterly uninvited. And the baby, miracle of miracles, stopped crying. By the time boarding began, the storm had rolled in fully. Wind screamed against the windows like it had something to prove. They sat 3 across. Elias, Lena, then the woman with her baby. It had happened without words. The gate agent had shuffled passengers, and Elias had quietly asked the woman if she'd be more comfortable with space. She didn't speak, only moved. The plane lifted into the storm like a moth daring the flame. Rain streaked sideways across the windows. The seatbelt sign blinked its stubborn red. Somewhere, a man cursed under his breath. But in row 18, something quieter unfolded. The woman tried rocking the baby again. He fussed, face red with exhaustion. Her arms trembled with effort. Elias watched, then unbuckled. "May I?" he asked. She flinched, then nodded. He took the baby into his arms like he'd done it yesterday. He hadn't, not in years. But his hands remembered how to support the neck, how to sway just right, how to hum a nothing tune low in the chest. The baby settled. "I used to do this with Lena," he said quietly. She was colicky, would scream for hours. The woman stared, then looked out the window. "I'm Elias," he added. Silence. Then, Mara, a beat. "That's hope," she said, without looking. Elias looked down at the sleeping child. Fitting. He didn't ask questions. She didn't offer more. Lena, curled under the airline blanket, peeked over. "Is she safe now?" Mara blinked. "Who?" "Hope." Mara's lips parted. Elias answered for her, gently. "Yes, sweetheart, she is now." For a long while, no one spoke. The plane rumbled like an old promise being broken in the sky. Mara shifted in her seat. Hands clenched, then unclenched. "You shouldn't have to help," she whispered. Elias didn't look at her. "That's not how help works. I don't even know you. I'm not asking for anything." Her throat worked. The overhead light flickered. She looked like she might say something, then didn't. The baby stirred. Elias returned her, him, gently, with a hand lingering longer than necessary, like he was leaving behind something weightless but important. She received the child without meeting his eyes. Lena was already asleep. Later, miles and miles later, when the cabin dimmed and most had surrendered to dreams or despair, Mara whispered something into the dark. I left with nothing. Elias didn't move. No photos. No bag. Just her. She paused. "That's why the socks don't match." His answer was silence. But not empty silence. The kind of silence that wraps around a secret and keeps it warm. The turbulence started then, gentle at first, a ripple, then a sudden drop. People gasped. A drink spilled 2 rows back. Mara reached for the seat. Elias reached for her hand. Reflex. She didn't pull away. She looked down at his fingers, calloused, steady, and let them stay. For a moment, the world steadied. The plane righted itself. The storm passed overhead like a judgment reconsidered. And in that hush between heartbeats, a woman with a past, a man with ghosts, a baby born to flight, and a girl who gave away her only bear all shared something wordless. A moment, a beginning, and in the quiet that followed, Mara pulled something from her pocket. A letter, folded a dozen times, crumpled like it had been held too tightly too long. She didn't read it, just touched it with her thumb, then tucked it into the seat back pocket, left it behind. When the plane landed, she didn't look back, but as they stepped onto wet tarmac, she turned to Elias. "I didn't know kind men still existed," she said, voice barely above rain. Elias looked down at Lena. "She makes it easier to remember how." They didn't hug. They didn't make promises. But they left the gate walking the same direction, side by side. It began with a tremor, not in the earth, but in the sky, the kind that lives between thunder and memory. The plane had been in the air for 32 minutes when the first real jolt struck. Just enough to make coffee quiver in its cup. Just enough to remind everyone aboard that nothing above the clouds is truly still. Elias K. didn't startle. He'd felt worse tremors. Inside his own chest, for one. Back when the monitors flat-lined and the doctor said, "We did everything we could." He looked to his left. Lena was curled against the window, arms wrapped around Clover the bear, her breath fogging the cold glass. To his right, Mara. Still, too still. She gripped her armrest as though it were a ledge over something bottomless. Hope lay sleeping against her shoulder, one fist curled beneath her cheek, mouth parted in that peace only babies know. Elias whispered, "It's all right, just a pocket of air." Mara's eyes flicked to him, dark, alert, then away again. The lights above flickered once. Turbulence returned, rougher now, and a collective hush swept the cabin. A kind of reverence not for prayer, but for fear. In the row ahead, a woman began to cry. Quietly, the sound of someone holding back everything they'd carried too long. Mara moved as if to shield her baby from emotion, but her arms were tired. There was a tremble in them, barely visible, but Elias saw it. "Would you like me to?" "No." Her voice was low, firm, but frayed at the edges. Another jolt, this one heavier. The plane dropped just enough for someone in the back to yelp. Flight attendants exchanged practiced glances. Elias said nothing more. He simply folded his hands, like a prayer with no recipient. Minutes passed. The plane leveled, but the hush lingered. Mara didn't move. Eventually, she spoke. "I'm not good at this." He turned to her. "Flying. Let anyone see me." He let that sit. Hope stirred, let out a soft whimper, then stilled again. Her tiny fingers twitched once, grasping air, looking for something. Elias reached for the in-flight blanket. "She cold?" "No," Mara smoothed the baby's hair. "She just misses warmth when it isn't near." There was no metaphor lost in that. "She's like you then," Elias said gently. Mara didn't respond. He didn't expect her to. The cabin light dimmed into its dusk mode hue, meant to lull the nervous and restless into uneasy sleep. Elias leaned back, eyes half closed. He didn't sleep on planes. Not anymore. Somewhere near the back, someone snored. Another person muttered angrily about misconnections. A plastic cup rolled down the aisle like a forgotten thought. Hope began to fuss again. Not loud, just that slow build, like a song tuning itself toward ache. Mara tried rocking, shushing. She sang something under her breath, a lullaby half remembered and laced in a language Elias didn't know. It didn't work. The baby cried harder. People turned. Mara shrank. And Elias, quietly, as if not to spook her, opened his arms. Mara's face twisted, shame and resistance colliding in her jaw. But then, she handed over the baby. Hope melted into him like a candle finds flame. Her cries slowed, softened, ended. Mara looked stunned. A breath caught between disbelief and grief. "She knows you," she whispered. "She just knows kindness," Elias said. "No," she said again, quieter this time. "She knows you." And her eyes, for the first time, stayed on his. There, in the hush of altitude and recycled air, something passed between them. Not romance, not even comfort, just recognition. Hope sighed in his arms. Lena stirred beside him. "Is she okay now?" Elias looked at her. "Yeah, she's okay." Lena reached over, touched the baby's sock. "That's Clover's sock," she said with quiet pride. Mara gave a faint laugh. The sound startled even her. It wasn't a laugh of joy. It was a laugh that escapes when you forget how grief keeps your ribs tight. She looked down at her hands. They were too still. "My husband doesn't know she was born," she said. Elias said nothing, just held the baby closer. "He doesn't even know her name. I didn't write it on anything. Didn't want him to find her." Then, slowly, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a tiny object. Soft pink yarn. A baby booty. The other half of something that once came in twos. "This is all I have left from the hospital," she whispered. "I left everything else in the bed." He watched as she rubbed it between her fingers. Over and over. A ritual, perhaps, or a tether. "I wasn't brave," she said. "I was just finished." Elias's voice was so soft it could have been mistaken for silence. Sometimes, Finish is where real courage starts. She looked at him again, and this time she didn't look away. Hope hiccuped and let out a tiny sigh, her hand resting on Elias's chest like she belonged there. She sleeps better with you, Mara said. She'll sleep best when you're rested. Mara blinked. Then, like surrender, not to him, but to mercy, she leaned her head against the seat and closed her eyes. It was the first time she'd done that since boarding. And Elias, for a while, just sat there, holding someone else's child like a borrowed prayer. The plane hit another patch of turbulence. Lena opened one eye. Are we falling? No, baby, Elias said. We're just learning how to stay up. Mara didn't sleep long. But when she opened her eyes, she saw something she hadn't expected. Elias had taken off his coat, wrapped it over her legs. Not because she was cold, because she mattered. Her lips parted, but no words came. She settled instead for reaching over, barely a gesture, and placing her pinky finger next to the baby's hand. Hope grabbed it instantly, and they stayed like that until the wheels touched down. They didn't speak again until the airport came into view, lights shimmering in rain-streaked windows, like stars that got too close to Earth. The cabin filled with a rustle of travelers collecting pieces of themselves. Bags, phones, regret. Elias helped Lena with her backpack. She stuffed Clover into it like a knight she was bringing home from war. Mara stood, adjusting the baby's sling. As they moved down the aisle, she turned once, met Elias's eyes, and in a voice barely louder than the storm still raging beyond the terminal glass, she said, "Thank you for holding her." Elias just nodded, and with a pause so brief it could have been missed by anyone not watching, Mara slipped something into his coat pocket. He found it later, walking toward the terminal doors. The other booty, soft yarn, faint hospital tag, still clipped to the cuff. No note, no explanation, just trust. And somewhere above the clouds, the storm was still there, but on the ground, hope was warm. And a man who'd been broken once walked a little straighter, carrying something precious he didn't expect. It happened just after the coffee was served. The kind of moment no one plans for, no one writes poems about. A jolt, not turbulence this time, but something deeper. A wrongness you can't explain until you feel it echo in your ribs. The hum of the engines, that low, faithful growl that had lulled so many into uneasy dreams, hiccuped once. Then again, and then, silence. Elias felt it first in the spine. The unnatural hush, like the air had forgotten how to carry noise. A beat later, the oxygen masks dropped. The baby wailed. A woman screamed. And somewhere toward the cockpit, a voice crackled over the speaker, brittle as old paper. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a mechanical issue. Please remain seated." Panic does not announce itself with sirens. It comes in waves. First the intake of breath, then the slow, rising pitch of disbelief, then noise. Too much of it. Lena clung to Elias's arm, her small hands ice cold, her eyes wide, no longer the eyes of a child, but of someone peering into the edge of something unspeakable. He buckled her tighter. "It's okay," he said, voice steady. "Look at me, baby." She did. "We breathe in," he said, drawing air in slowly, showing her. Then out. The plane dipped, sudden and sharp. Bags fell. Someone sobbed. A man prayed aloud in Spanish, trembling. Mara, beside them, had frozen. Hope cried in the sling across her chest, red-faced and terrified. Elias reached across Lena and touched Mara's shoulder. "You're not alone," he said. Mara didn't speak, but her eyes were full of something between terror and surrender, the kind of look you carry when you've already run too far. Hope shrieked, and in the chaos, the ritual began. Elias took the baby. He didn't ask. He simply reached, and Mara let go. Hope folded into his arms like she knew how this went, that she'd done this before. In another life, another storm. The lights flickered. The plane dropped again, longer this time. like the sky itself had exhaled. People screamed, but in row 18 there was a kind of stillness. Not calm, just clarity. Mara turned her face toward the window, blinking back panic. Her hands pressed flat against her knees, knuckles white. "I should never have gotten on this flight," she whispered. Elias heard it, every word, and said nothing. Hope had stopped crying. Instead, she watched Elias with watery eyes, her hand resting over his heart. Outside, the world was clouds and lightning, a war of weather raging with no respect for steel and fuel. "I lied," Mara said, still watching the window, still not breathing right. "I said I ran from him. But it wasn't just him." Elias shifted his weight, just enough to shield the baby better. "I ran from everyone," she said. "My mother, my name. I couldn't let them tell me who I was supposed to be, so I took her and disappeared." Her voice broke. "But I didn't plan beyond that. I don't even know where this flight lands." Elias didn't answer, because the baby stirred and her tiny hand reached up toward Mara, not to be held, just a touch. Fingers brushing air, looking for her mother, and Mara, broken, breathless, unsure, took that hand. It steadied them both. Another jolt. The lights returned. The engine groaned, then caught. Like something forgotten, remembered how to be strong. The captain's voice returned, this time clearer. "We've stabilized one engine. Emergency landing protocol initiated. Nearest airfield is 18 minutes out. Buckle tight." Mara leaned back, closed her eyes, whispered something Elias couldn't hear. He didn't press. Instead, he looked at Lena. Her face was pale, but she gave him a small nod. Strong, brave. "You okay?" he asked. Lena pointed to her lap. She'd been holding something. It was the baby booty Mara had left behind. The one Hope had kicked loose earlier. She handed it back to him without a word. A ritual, a relay, something handed from one quiet heart to another. When the plane finally touched ground, hard, with brakes that screamed like they, too, had held their breath too long, the cabin broke into applause. Some cried. Others clutched strangers with trembling gratitude. But in row 18, no one moved. Not yet. Hope slept again, her breath feather-soft against Elias's neck. Mara stared ahead, dry-eyed now, hollowed out and full at the same time. "I don't know what I'm doing," she said. "None of us do," Elias answered. "Why are you helping me?" He looked down at the baby, then back at her. "Because someone should have helped me once." That was the truth. Simple. Weighty. They deplaned into the wet dark of a nowhere airstrip. Cold rain fell sideways. A single hangar light flickered in welcome. A bus waited to take passengers to a nearby hotel. People shuffled on, some hugging, some staring into their phones like the world hadn't tilted midair. Elias, still holding Hope, stepped off the last stair and turned to help Mara. She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. There was no ring on it. There hadn't been for years. Still, the gesture mattered. The rain soaked through their coats, but no one noticed. Before the bus doors closed, a flight attendant called out to Elias. "Sir, your family did beautifully up there." Elias blinked, then smiled just barely. "Thank you," he said, and didn't correct her. That night, in a roadside hotel that smelled of pine disinfectant and something older, Elias laid Hope gently in the bassinet the clerk had found somewhere in storage. He turned. Mara was watching. "I didn't mean to let her go," she said. "You didn't," he replied. Outside, the rain softened. It tapped against the windows like fingers learning to play piano again. Lena snored lightly under the covers, clutching Clover like a talisman. Mara moved to the edge of the bed, pulled something from her jacket. A letter, folded too many times. She opened it. Her hands trembled. Then she didn't read it, just stared, then refolded it and set it on the nightstand. For the first time since they met, Elias sat beside her. Not close, but near enough. She whispered, "Tomorrow I tell you everything." And he answered, "Tomorrow I listen." Hope stirred in the bassinet. Outside, dawn waited just beyond the clouds. The miracle didn't come with trumpets. It arrived in the hush between rain and morning. That thin, fragile stillness after a storm, when the clouds part like someone remembering how to breathe, and the sky dares to be blue again. The world, in its quiet, waiting way, held its breath just a little longer. The hotel was older than it looked, with carpets that whisper and walls that held stories from decades past. Outside, dew clung to the grass like the night hadn't wanted to let go. The sun was only just beginning to rise, brushing pale gold across the windows, lighting them from within like someone had lit candles behind the glass. Inside, Elias Cade sat at the tiny round table near the window. He wasn't doing anything, just sitting, one hand around a lukewarm cup of coffee, the other resting on a folded pink booty. He hadn't slept, not because of fear, but because some nights weren't meant for sleep. They were meant for remembering. Behind him, Lena breathed softly, tangled in blankets too big for her. Clover peeked out from beneath her elbow, still wearing one baby sock. Mara hadn't spoken yet. She sat across from him now, hair damp from the quick, silent shower she'd taken. Hope slept nearby in the bassinet the night clerk had carried in like a midwife bearing witness. "I thought," Mara began and stopped. Her voice cracked, not from emotion, but from the weight of carrying silence too long. She tried again. "I thought that if I could just run far enough, they wouldn't find me. That if I disappeared, I could become someone else. Someone strong. Someone who didn't need help." Elias didn't speak, just listened, like a man kneeling at a river's edge, watching it carry everything away. "My name isn't Mara," she whispered. That was the first true thing. "My name is Madeline. Madeline Rose Hart." She looked up, met his eyes. There was no fear there now, just surrender, of the good kind. "My family owns this hotel, this whole chain. My mother, she's the one who taught me how to disappear." Ironically, the corner of Elias's mouth lifted. Barely. She thought she was protecting me, giving me strength, but what she really did was teach me how to vanish. Madeline glanced toward the window, where light was now spilling across the floor, turning the worn carpet into gold. I married a man she approved of. He came from all the right circles, knew how to smile in photos, but behind closed doors. She stopped. Her fingers traced the rim of her cup, then stilled. "I wasn't supposed to keep the baby. He said it would ruin things. Appearances. Timing." She looked at Elias. "But I kept her anyway. And I ran." There it was, the thing she'd never said aloud. "I didn't have a plan," she admitted. "Only an instinct. Like the body knows when it's bleeding too much, even before the mind catches up." Hope stirred in the bassinet. Not crying, just that soft baby sigh, like she was dreaming of something small and safe. Elias spoke for the first time. "She looks like you." Madeline blinked. "She has your hands. Same grip." A quiet laugh escaped her. And then, unexpectedly, tears. Not the kind that break things. The kind that put pieces back together. Outside, a car door shut. A beat later, a knock echoed from the lobby downstairs. The kind of knock that had weight behind it. Authority. Madeline stood, rigid. She didn't go to the window. She didn't need to. She already knew. Her mother had arrived. Elias stood with her. "You don't have to go down," he said. "She'll come up," Madeline replied. He nodded. "I'll be here." She met his gaze. "I know." And she believed it now. 10 minutes passed. They felt like lifetimes. Then, the soft sound of footsteps in the hallway. A knock. Elias opened the door. The woman standing there was elegant in a way that came from years of sculpted control. Her hair was pulled into a chignon that hadn't moved since 1973. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, exhausted, but they softened when they landed on Madeline. The silence between them stretched. "You look thin," the woman said. Madeline swallowed. "You look the same." The older woman looked past her. To the baby, her features barely moved, but her breath did. A hitch, barely visible. "She's beautiful," she said. "She's mine," Madeline replied. Her mother nodded. Elias watched, standing near the bassinet, guarding something fragile without needing to raise his voice. "I'm not coming home," Madeline said. Her mother looked at her. No tears. No dramatics. "I know." Then, almost too soft to catch. "But maybe I can come visit sometime." Madeline didn't answer, but her hand rested on the back of a chair, knuckles white, holding herself still, holding herself together. Her mother stepped forward, slowly, as if navigating ice. She placed something on the table, a photograph, framed. Madeline is a little girl, maybe 6, riding a carousel horse, laughing. The mother said, "I kept it on my desk the whole time." Then she left. No hug, no sorry, but something real. Madeline sat again, staring at the photo. Lena woke, rubbed her eyes, climbed into her father's lap. "Is it morning?" she asked. Elias kissed the top of her head. "Almost." The room was gold now, the kind of gold that only comes after surviving something dark. Madeline reached over and tucked the photo into her bag. Then she looked at Elias. "I don't know what comes next." "Neither do I," he said. "But we could figure it out. Together." Lena reached over and handed Hope the teddy bear again. Clover, who had now crossed many hands and many miles. "She can keep him," Lena said. "He's good at new homes." Hope grasped the bear, gurgled, and smiled. A real smile, the kind you remember. They packed slowly. No rush. Madeline carried Hope. Elias carried the bags. Lena skipped ahead, holding the lobby door open like a herald. Outside, the sun had fully risen. The road ahead shimmered with possibility. They didn't hold hands, but they walked close, and as they disappeared into the light, Elias looked once at Madeline. She looked back and whispered, "Thank you for not letting go." He didn't say anything. He just walked beside her, step for step. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and become a part of a family that believes in unexpected kindness and love.